Drone hobby is not cheap hobby, so when you crash your drone or lose it, it's a big blow to your wallet. You may be able to fly well and confidently, but a situation can always happen that is beyond your control. So watch this video until the end to find out what are the causes of accidents and how to avoid them. I've been flying drones more than 3 years and make popular videos like this. So let's go. Alright, it's very important to listen my words now and do everything to avoid getting into the same situation. Many beginners in the drone industry often to try to save money by purchasing cheap components. However, this can be risky and these cheap components could burn out during or after flights. Even if user didn't do anything wrong or have an accident, the drone can simply crash to the ground. Buying cheap controllers, goggles or antennas can also lead to losing the drones when flying far away or getting caught behind branches. Rule number 2. Stable communication between you and your drone. It's connection between the controller to control the drone and the signal between the goggles and the video transmitter. I use Tenga 2 with Crossfire installed, and you can also buy a Radio Master 12 or 16 and install the Crossfire module on it separately. The second thing is the goggles. I fly on a digital system, however some haters write me that it's possible to fly on analog. Okay, I don't dispute, but I want to get pleasure when I'm flying, as on a good car, and not to drive on bumps. Okay, both variants will bring to the finish line, but what will be the sensations? So I use the DJI goggles for second last version, but you should buy the previous version and fly in them. You can definitely save money here and won't lose anything. So if you have the previous version on the goggles, you have to throw out the stock antennas and buy another one. This is the true RC antennas. There are the stop for flying around yourself for short distance, but where there are a lot of objects. Or these patches for flying long distance in a straight line. It's a guaranteed quality and penetrating signal. The same applies to the video transmitter. Its unit has a short antenna and the good antennas on the goggles will not save you. You have to put good antennas on the drones too. If the drone had a 5-inch or larger, the antenna should be at least 10 centimeters long. Why it's important? When you fly far away from you in a straight line, the drone is facing you the backward, like this, meaning the antenna, and nothing is blocking the signal between you and drone, even if it's short, the antennas. But when you decide to turn back, there will be an object between you and the antenna in the form of the drone itself, the battery and the camera. The signal will either be cut off or will start to fall off a lot. That's why you should put the antenna of such a length that at any position of the drones it looks out from behind it. That's why you need to install the long antennas. Any position of the drone it looks out from behind it. It's better when you have 2 antennas on the drone, especially important for long flight, and you can place them like this. It's my Himera 7-inch. Keep in mind that the goggles must have penetration patches. Their true RC patches have a small angle that can cover the signal, but they penetrate far away. This means that you should always turn your hand like this to where your drone is. If you look in one direction and the drone is, for example, there, the signal will be cut off. Always remember where your drone is and where you are. You need to train your orientation in space. If we have a small whoop, for example 2 or 3 inches, to fly not far from yourself and where there are small objects, then you need to put short antennas on the goggles. On the drone itself will also be enough not high antennas. It's not so necessary to turn your head all around, and you can fly from behind, on the front, everything will be okay. The rule number 3. Don't make a mistake with what drone you choose, what tasks. If you have a micro drone for flying around yourself and you suddenly decide to fly to neighboring hills 2 kilometers away from you, be sure that the drone will not return. Now let's discuss why we can lose our drone or crash it. As I said earlier, it can be bad antennas, goggles, controller. You may have expected to fly 1 kilometer away, but the connection is broken and nothing can help. Change your equipment. If you have good antennas, equipment, the connection can still fail unexpectedly. You can get a signal jammer, or in the place where you fly, there may be strong interference on your frequencies. This is often observed in Asia. I crashed my drone in Sri Lanka and I was only 200 meters away from me, but the connection to the controller was broken. It's turned out that there was a very dirty 868 frequency and I had to change the remote controller to 915 frequency. I didn't know about this, and every time I took off, my remote controller warned me that I had a critical signal strength, and I was only 100 meters away from me. I ignored it, I paid the price. Next, you can fly over objects that your signal can't penetrate, such as massive concrete or iron structure, hills or dense forests. If you fly low over water, the signal may start to over-reflect, from which your crossfire may simply get swamped in interference and fall off. To minimize such cases, you need to come to the location and analyze the terrain, think about your flight in advance, test it, and find the ideal position where you stand so that the signal is clear during your flight along the planned trajectory. But you realize that you cannot avoid everything, and communication failure can happen even if you seem to have foreseen everything. Usually after that, the drone falls down with a stone in the place where the signal with the remote controller was cut off. Or if you lost the picture in the goggles, you do not know where to fly and crash into something nearby. God forbid it was not a person. In order not to kill neither your drone or people nearby, you can protect yourself in the following ways. The first, install a GPS module on your drone. This is how the model looks like. If you build the drone yourself, you buy it and solder it to the flight controller. If you buy a ready-made drone, look for one that can sell already with the module installed. With the proper setup in Betterfly, you can save your drone. If you have lost connections with the remote controller, the rescue mode will be automatically activated. The drone will take off to the desired altitude by itself and fly in stab mode to the takeoff position. It will not be able to see objects, so if you were flying in a narrow places where there was something above you on the drone, or there were objects higher than with specified heights for the turn, you will crash. So this method is good only in open spaces. If your video signal is suddenly cut off, you can turn on the rescue mode yourself by programming it on a certain toggle switch on the remote controller. The drone will also start to return by itself as in the first case, and when the picture returns on your goggles, we can take control again and fly on. This is how the GPS module settings for emergency return home look like. And this is how you can program a toggle switch in this tab. For example, I have it on a 4. This system only works if you follow the launch rules before each takeoff. When you turn on the battery in the drone, you cannot start the motors immediately. You cannot do the arm. You have to wait until your drone has found at least 8 satellites. Only when it has realized where the drone is, determine its coordinates, you can launch the drone and fly. Now, in case of any incident, it will remember where it took off from and will return to the same position. By the way, all my cases of drone loss were not over the land, but over the water. With land, there are less problems. There is always a chance to find the drones, or if it fell on soft ground, it will not even be badly damaged. But with water, things are worse. So here's a way to keep yourself safe above water. What I said earlier applies here as well. First, your drone needs to be sealed. It needs to be waterproof. It's not much good against salt water, but in fog, rain, or even if you fall into the river or the pool, your drone can survive. If you fall into the sea, the salt will still find the way in and the current. And second, and most importantly, when flying over water, attach floats to the drone. If you're flying without them, the drone will sink and nothing will save it. What about material? They should be sealed. It's better to use and to do it with the silicone varnish. Many advised glue B7000. But with the time, the blows up and the place of bubbles like a burst and the tightness is lost. I was often lazy and did not hang them when flying over the water, and life quickly punished me for this, and I lost my drones forever. So, general advice. In the event of a crash, don't panic, don't flay your arms, don't move your stick violently. And if you realize that the crash is inevitable, the best things you can do is just make a sudden disarm, just make disarm. When your drones meet the object, it starts to spin the props and motors in maximum way. If you don't turn it off, it flies at the some ways and speed goes maximum and it becomes dangerous for everything around it. So don't try to correct the situation, especially while you still don't have a lot of experience. The best things to do is do disarm and walk feet first. Look for your down drones and pray that the damage is minimal. In conclusion, you will still break and lose your drones, especially if you are a curious pioneer. You want to discover new spaces and fly as complex and as spectacular as possible. So just be ready for it physiologically, not to spoil your nerves. Subscribe, don't miss new videos, and clear skies.